So hello everyone and welcome to another lovely WARNO video, and this time we have a lovely guest over from the UK. It's Mr. Vulcan.
Hello guys, how you doing? Good to be here.
And we have gathered together because WARNO League is approaching and the meta is still getting figured out, but as Vulcan is joining the league and I'm obviously going to be busy with it as well, we wanted to have a look on what our thoughts about the meta at the moment are and how we would rank the divisions that are the 16 that we will have in the base game, how we would rank them in a tier list at the moment. So
I feel like our opinions are going to be wildly different because my experience in 1v1 compared to you is drastically different.
so you played 1v1s lately as well, or?
No, not at all, really. So I'm basing most of my knowledge off theoretical and how I see them play in team games, so it's a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, my 1v1 experience at the moment is mostly watching hippie videos, so I'm heavily cheese inspired as well. But
nice.
Yeah. Shall we start with the division that is up first? The newest divisions added to the game, the 11 Parachutist. What do you think about that division in its current state?
So when I first saw it, I thought it would struggle massively against armored divisions, but it does have a lot of HGMs, and now that you can put HGMs in buildings, it's actually not too bad at holding open ground whilst your infantry just wrecks everything in close quarters. So I think the control on this deck, particularly in smaller maps, is actually quite good.
Yeah, I think the division has 3 really good strengths. The infantry, the forward deployment in general, and then the helo meme that it can bring up with the 20mm helo spam of Doom. But it also has 2 major weaknesses. AA and the Sagai at the moment is just a really terrible tank to rely on. For 90 points, it's just heavily overpriced. So I feel like it's a C tier division still. Even though, yeah, it has forward deployment and all, but it feels like it never can hold on for too long. Where would you place it? B tier then, I guess? Or
Yeah, I would say it's more of a B tier personally, because like I can see the cheese potential in the helicopters, and I can also see it being a really sticky division to get rid of, particularly with the high vet infantry that's relatively decently priced as well. And especially since they all have the Apilas, it just makes things very difficult in those sort of closer quarters engagements for other divisions.
you see, my comparison is with the 82nd Airborne, and the 82nd Airborne has, in my eyes, better ATGMs because they have more range. As the issue with the Milans for me is that they only have 2,400 meter range, which is not that much more than guns, and often is a bit annoying to use, versus the 2,600 of other ATGMs. And that's why I feel like the ATGMs in that deck are nice as well, but they're worse than in other infantry divisions. That's why I would put them into C tier compared to B tier. But yeah,
they also have the Jaguars though, which are very nice. Particularly the cluster Jaguar is very reliable.
You mean the the planes?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Then we start with that in B tier, I guess. Let's go to the first of the British divisions, the first armored. What do you think about that?
I think the first armored's generally pretty trashed here right now.
Yeah, I agree there.
Mainly because the pricing is all out of whack. It's a very expensive division for what you get.
Yeah, the Challenger for sure, currently the weakest performing out of its price out of the heavy tanks. And also, yeah, it's a really slow division. And the Rapier is a nice AA, but only having that as your AA is a bit annoying against planes as well. Like, it's amazing against helicopters, but against planes you want a bit more. The Tornado price reduction is nice, but it's not good enough to make the air amazing. And the infantry is just the annoying thing with the British is you don't have any flamethrower squadrons, and TNT at the moment is just not good in 1.0. So CQC, you really struggle with your infantry against all the other divisions that all have flames in some form or another.
Yeah, you end up having to rely on the like aviary, which is so bad, and like the other autocannon units and support units in the recon tab.
Yeah, the only redeeming factor for me in this division is the warrior and the fox with the Raiden 30mm that are pretty good, and you get the foxes so cheap, especially with the gun groups. This is the only way I feel like you can win with this division, but that's not really a reliable thing, and that's easily figured out. So I would put it even into D tier. Currently,
yeah, I can see that for now.
Wouldn't recommend playing with it. Yeah, so let's go to the second British division, which in my eyes has similar problems. It has one really cool unit with the SAS that is really strong in allowing you early on map control. And actually, I feel like its tank tab is better than the one of First Armored because you have some cheap tanks to go around. So it
also has some pretty strong heavy artillery.
Yeah. And
it still has like the base difficulties of the other division. Like it gets Jaguars though, which is a nice upgrade over Tornadoes just because they're cheaper, more expendable. And then you've got like the tanks because of the M48s. You've got like the Aufklärer, those kinds of units that kind of make this a little bit better. But yeah, it's only going to be like C tier in comparison, I think.
Yeah, I would also put it into C tier. Like it's usable in the right map maybe, and if you have a good strategy, but it's still not a division I would ever recommend currently to be to go into a tournament game with. Or
genuinely making me sad at the start.
Yeah, it's
the poor Brits. They were treated badly.
It's a classic French game, isn't it?
French bias,
obviously. And so yeah, now we come to the West Germans, the first West German division, the second Panzer Grenadier. And here I'm currently really split on because they have good forward deployment, they have some Fallschirmjägers, but I feel like the Eyehawk is not a great AA piece at the moment, especially because artillery still shreds it easily. And so and you don't have a good helicopter, and those are two important features. So yes, you have solid infantry, and yes, you have Leos, but in general, I felt like the times of this division being the absolute top are over, and I would put it also into B tier.
It gets a relatively cheap cluster tornado, which is actually pretty good. So that's something that's really nice about it. I think the tank tab is also much more forgiving. You got like the Leopard 1A 101s, which are really good. Their artillery again with the M109s. Like M109s, I think are pretty strong right now.
Oh yeah.
And then their infantry tab is okay, but I don't know. You'd have to like rely on the Fallschirmjäger to get map control, and I don't feel like they stand up to a lot of airborne divisions very well.
Yeah, their Fallschirmjägers are not super amazing, but they give you at least forward deployment, which is And I would say this is a pretty basic division. Like it's a really good all rounder. It doesn't have any glaring weaknesses, but also,
except from its helis, which are just terrible.
Oh yeah,
not having a reactive like rocket heli or something is just really trash.
Oh yeah, right. Also the thing by right, they're the ones with only the ATGM helos that can't hunt down enemy infantry in your real line. Yeah, reacting to enemy infiltration behind your lines is basically down to alpha jets, which is not a super amazing tool to do with that. Yeah. So I would put them into B tiered because they have some weaknesses with behind the line, and they don't do anything amazingly at the moment.
Yeah, I'm surprised how similar we're rating these right now, to be honest. Other than the first division, we pretty much agreed on everything so far.
Yeah. Now we come to a division that I'm interested in what your opinion is. The 35th Air Assault on the current patch.
Okay, so when I first played this division ever, like in the game, it was I found it awful. I thought it was so bad. But with like the autocannon buff and stuff, the BMD2s are super good. So their like mechanized play is really strong at the moment, and they get like reasonable tanks with like the T-64 BV. I think they're actually a pretty strong division at the moment. And they also get really strong aircraft. Like the MiG-29 is such a reliable air-to-air.
Yeah, the MiG-20. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think they have an amazing helicopter tab now, especially with ECM on helicopters, as they have multiple helicopters now that got like the Akula and the VP up to 20 ACM. And the Spetsnaz. Oh my god, are the Spetsnaz good now. The 12-man Spetsnaz are the best CQC in the game, and they have forward deployment. And that alone makes them really, really strong for me, because you get 2 cards of these, and the RPG-29 Spetsnaz unit is also really, really nice. So, yes, you have the BMDs, you have the T-64s now again, which are decent tanks. They're not the best of all time, but you get 2 cards of solid tanks, which is nice for an airborne division. And yeah, the air and helicopter tab just are the best in the some of the best in the game. So for me, this is at the moment actually an S tier division. Where would you put it?
I don't know if I'd put it S, because it kind of, I feel like it lacks on the arty front, and I feel like arty is actually a big part of the infantry gameplay right now. Like it's all very well like Spetsnaz being like broken OP right now, but if they take an artillery shell to the face, they're still gonna die.
Right. Yeah. The only artillery. Yeah. The Vajilek still is pretty pretty horrible.
Yeah.
The only artillery piece that is okay in
And
this deck, I
you
guess.
you don't really get any reliable. We don't get any like 4 damage artillery.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem.
The only thing that is somewhat okay is the Nonna. But yeah, the artillery is a bit of a problem. You're right there. Now we come to another pretty interesting division, the 39th Guards Mechanized, the division that kept the flag up for the Pact for a while, but now the others have caught up with it. Yeah, this division in my eyes is amazing. With the BMD-3, with the Su-25s. Though they lost one of the rocket cards, I still think it's the best air tab in the game. Or no, the second best air tab in the game. But yeah, the Su-25 is the best attack plane in the game, in my eyes. And that makes this deck really, really strong.
Yeah, I think again their infantry tab benefits from the autocannons on the BMP2 and the BMP3. Really, really, really strong. They get the Akataya, which is again a really, really solid artillery piece because it gets the 4.1 damage. Their tank tabs like decent enough. Like yeah, you're not going to be beating super heavies, but super heavies are too expensive anyway. And then they get decent AA. They get decent helicopters. They've got good air tab. Yeah, I think they're very, very good right now.
I think they're the best all-rounder. The only thing that they don't have is amazing forward deployment, but they have enough power to push through it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The forward deployment on the 39th is rough. If you're up against something like the 82nd, or like if you were to like be up against the Descents or like the French, I feel like you're actually going to have big problems.
Yeah, you need to use your couple of Grancers or Ratchetka Heavies combined with helicopters and maybe already an Su-25 at the start usually to come back. But you can usually come back with this division. I feel like it's not a division that overruns you quickly, but it has the in my eyes the best combined arms in the game. The BMD3 with BMP3 with its 2,800 meter ATGM and so on is really, really good. So for me, this is the Soviet S tier division then, or really high A tier. I'm not quite sure if S or A there.
Let's just put it in S for now, because I do think it's better than the 35th.
Yeah, and then we can maybe do a run over it later again and see once we have done it. Yeah, third US Armored, my OG division, the division I played a lot till my favorite division of all time was released, but still my second place when it comes to how I like it to play with it. But strength-wise, still a pretty good one, as I feel like the ATGMs in the US decks are just making them so scary when they are on the defense. But the infantry obviously hurts. Yeah. What is?
Yeah, I think the infantry tab, like with the mech rifles, they used to be really good, but they just seem a bit like expensive these days. And you can bring like the TOW2s, but then you kind of suffer with like total cards and total number of infantry, which in longer games could definitely be a problem. They do get decent artillery though. Like the M1A1HA is just a really good tank. Big fan of it. And you get so many cars that you can bring them in like high vet anyway, just guarantee those shots. They do get like the CUV, which is good for infantry fire support. It's maybe a little bit overpriced, but it's okay. Recon tab kind of meh. I'm not a fan of Bradleys in general.
You're not a fan of. I'm a big fan of the 60-point Bradley transport in this deck. That's why I think this, like the TOW2s on that also are great on the infantry one for 60 point. The one in the recon tab by now are pretty pricey, but they also still bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, they get decent enough. Like AA, the helicopters are really good. Like the rocket Apaches, super nice.
Yeah, that's in 1v1 the scary thing about this division. You never know if they are coming at you with a like classic, well spread out tank and infantry armored push, or if they just helo spam you at the start with 6 Apaches and a F-15 in the air.
Yeah,
like that's another thing. Their air tap, the Eagle is still one of the best fighters in the game, and that is still
it's very good. Yes,
pretty good and pretty scary, and that can protect the helos better than other decks can protect their helos, because you can intercept enemy air superiority fighters really reliably with it, because it's fast and it has good missiles and good enough ECM that it can go into enemy airspace somewhat reliably. But yeah, the infantry and the forward deployment are what's holding the deck back in my eyes the most. And
forward deployment again, it does suffer there big time.
So for me, this is a top like B tier division. Like it's always usable, but you have to be a bit careful against forward deployment decks.
Yeah. I think that's okay.
Come on, that way. Okay. Yeah. And now we come to a deck where I have no idea how you see them. For motorisierte Schützendivision of the NVA. Where
I haven't really been playing this deck much, honestly. It's a weird one. I feel like there isn't really many strengths. It just relies on spam. Like honestly, the tanks can be really scary. Like if you have like all of these T55s like coming in at like their standard T55A is like 45 points, and if you bring out all of them at the same time and just like start running at people, it can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, in my eyes, this deck at the moment is insane. Because, yes, first of all, the T55s, then their Me-24Ds now have double the availability, so that you get an armored helicopter with 2 availability per card, which no other armored helicopter with 10 hit points gets that. And they still, so that they still tank well. Yes, they have no ECM, but they still survive 2 or 3 man-pet shots. And the amount of T55 spam plus Fallschirmjägers is just such a scary start. And their Fallschirmjägers actually do something, because they have Metis, for example, which give them a good amount of AT range as well, unlike the West German Fallschirmjägers, which don't have any ATGMs on them.
Yeah. They definitely have like that forward deployment capability at the start. Then they also have Akatayas, they have like T55s. Like there is a lot going for this division. I don't think I would see it as good as you do, because I think that it can be shut down by any division that has like medium tier armor and plays it well.
Well, against those decks, you usually can air spam helo spam them somewhat, though. Like that's the thing I see at the moment. Like the amount of spam you can bring in all tabs. Air tab also has some great spams with the SU-22s.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really scared of this deck at the moment. Like,
I don't know. I just don't. I think there's. I don't know. Maybe. I
so
don't
I
think I've
guess you
played it
would put
enough
them
to
into
really.
B tier, or where would you put them?
I can see where you're coming from, like strength wise. So I wouldn't mind if you put it in A.
Yeah, okay, then we put it into A. I mean, for me, it would be an S tier. I guess if you put it B tier, then we can agree on A tier. I mean, let's put it there. Now we come to the dark horse of the all the divisions, and the one that has brought a lot of rumbling into the community when it came out. The fifth Flinde, the Ferrari division of the French, with its super fast armored cars.
Yeah,
And I
the
think
VAB T20s and stuff. Oh boy.
I think it's still as annoying as it has been. Like, yes, it has nerf. It's maybe a bit weaker, but it's still as annoying as it always has been because the strategy is still the same. Still absolutely hate playing against it. And
Yeah, the availability like nerf on the MX10s was nice, but they're still strong.
yeah,
And I think you still have enough of them for them to be really annoying at the start.
yeah. Now, and the nerf in armor penetration also didn't do too much to the normal one. And the other one got 10 points more expensive, but also got one more penetration. So it's those are still really strong. The tank tab got nerfed with the reduction in penetration and stuff. So at least their follow-up is not quite as strong in that regard, but the VAB 20 is still there for 30 points, which is still really cheap for that as well. So this deck in the hands of someone who micros well, still it always shreds me, and it's just feels really frustrating to lose against this division.
Yeah. I think like obviously they have the weakness of like the helicopters and stuff, but their early game I think is really strong, even without like crazy forward deployment.
Yeah, and I feel like their fighters are also really cost efficient. Plus the annoying range on all the French anti-tank rocket launchers that they all have 820 meter range or 850 meter range is also something a really scary prospect because you always have to stay away from every forest, at least a kilometer with your tanks, so that they don't get shot with rocket launchers, which makes
that's very nice.
pushing pushing with tanks into enemy forests really annoying. So in my eyes, it's still an S tier division. Has it fallen off with you with the nerfs, or is it also still high with you?
I would say it's still an S tier. I think for 1v1, like in the team game, it's actually not that strong these days, I don't think. But in 1v1, like the initial punch and then like having, decent enough substance to follow up is like super strong.
Yeah,
And the early game is just premium right now.
in team games, you can't snowball out of a early lead as much as you can in 1v1. So
Yeah, exactly.
And at some point, the AMXs are all dead. But in 1v1 at that point, most of the time, the game is already nearly over. Whilst in 10v10s or 4v4s, you often can come back after that. So yeah, that's why. Yeah, I would in a team game tier list, I also would put more into B tier or so with the current AMX 30s. But yeah, in the 1v1, I still an S tier division. Looking forward to what Eugen is going to do about them. But hey. Next one is the 5th Panzer. And this one got some nice buffs lately. Especially the Apaches cleaning out the weaknesses that both West German divisions had before. Now only the 2nd Panzer Grenadier still has no helicopters. But the 5th now has Apaches, and that made it really one level up for me again. Above the 2nd. So for me, this is an A tier division. Where does it stand for you?
Yeah, I think it's really good. It also benefits from having the 2A4s. So whilst like heavy tanks obviously aren't really meta right now, a good one in the right place can really make a big difference. I think obviously got the Martyrs with the 1A3s, the decent fire support for their infantry. Yeah, I'd say they're pretty good. They get the cheap tornado as well.
Oh right, yeah, the
So
tornadoes got cheaper now as well. The air superiority ones also went down in price.
yeah, and like I say with the Apache, it's really nice now. So I think this is definitely very strong. I like, I don't know. I feel like A definitely. I think it could be higher.
Okay. Yeah,
Mainly because like it does get like the wider range of leopards and like the leopard 1A 1A1s, and you can even get like M42s, right? So you can kind of support those infantry really well whilst also having like the helicopters and the aircraft, and yeah, just overall I feel like it's really strong just in all areas right now.
the thing that holds it back for me is its AA is a solid. The raw ones are solid, but not super unbeatable. Like they have no super long range AA, and
Well, the weakness of the Roland is like the reload time.
yeah, the
It
reload
takes
time is also
forever.
you can overwhelm them. You can overwhelm
Yeah,
them with heavy air spam.
yeah. It only takes 2 helicopters to kill one
Yeah,
Roland.
and you don't have a good man pad. And then the other thing is the infantry is mediocre, and you don't have forward deployment in strength. Like the Jäger Aufklärers are decent, but the Luxus just got nerfed again. Like they're more expensive and lower availability than they had been back in the day. So their forward deployment is pretty weak. That's why I would put them into 8 here. And the
Yeah, I think A
Martyrs,
is fine.
yeah. So, but it's otherwise a really well-rounded division, yeah. And now we come to the division that is a tank division, but in my eyes, it's more of an air division at the moment, and that's the 79th. It's the division in my eyes with the strongest air tap for 1v1, and that is what it also makes it so scary. Doesn't have the BMP3, unlike the 39th, which makes the infantry tab a lot weaker, but the T80s, BVs, and Us are nice, but especially the MiG-31 Su-25 combo is just insane.
Yeah. Although, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this deck plays pretty slowly in general. And the Buratino is like nice, but it's like not cost effective, right? So you're relying on the Akatar again, which is fine because it's still really good. Their tanks like generally cost too much, in my opinion, except for maybe like the T62s.
Yeah, but you'd only get one card of those. You get
Yeah,
more on the card now, which is quite nice, but yeah, you don't have as good of a mix of high mid-range and low mid-range tanks as you have in 39, where you have a lot of T62s and a lot of T80 BVs.
yeah, and infantry like suffers massively from like the lack of cards, and like in order to get benefit from like the BMP2s, you kind of want to upvet them. So like general availability of infantry is a struggle. The quality of the infantry itself is already kind of bad. Like the forward deployment is okay, but nothing special because you're kind of relying on like the Spetsnaz, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's okay, but it depends. Like obviously, if you are, I assume like you like your air spam in this. Maybe that's the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, in my eyes, it's currently the strongest air deck, and I'm not quite sure where that puts it because, yeah, as I said, the rest is all fine, but not really groundbreaking. Like T80s, EUs, and so on. The T80U and UD suffered from being as expensive as the M1A1HA, but not as survivable against cluster. Like the cool thing about the M1A1HA is it has 4 top armor. It's the only tank with 4 top armor, so it survives cluster runs relatively reliably. Whereas T80 UDs always die, which for 350 points is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think it would be like a C or B tier.
I would let's put it into mid B tier then.
Yeah.
And then we come to the 7th Panzer Division, which just got an insane buff on basically everything. And went from, I guess, D tier before, or maybe C tier. I guess maybe C tier to, in my eyes, A tier by having T-72s, T-55s, the infantry, and the helicopter buffed within one patch, basically.
Yeah, so I was actually always a big fan of this deck because of like the numerous SU-22s, and I really like the T-72s, and then they got buffed. So like the T-72s are actually pretty baller right now,
Yeah.
and they've always been very strong. The only thing that kind of worries me about playing like the 7th Panzer Division is like infantry generally. They don't get any like reliable autocannon APCs, so their infantry support is kind of lackluster, and you are forced to bring in tanks to like provide that fire support in a lot of ways. So I think it's not as strong as like other divisions that, like say like the 39th, but it's still pretty strong because you do still have cheap tanks to supplement. Or
Yeah, the T55 basically is an APC in my eyes.
yeah,
Or an
yeah, yeah.
IFV in this deck. Like that's kind of how you play it. And the one, yeah, the CQC infantry in this deck, you have low amounts of a really good unit. I feel like the flamethrower infantry, since the buff of flamethrowers, since the lower aim time and so on, the flamethrower infantry is pretty good, but you just get so few of them, which is a bit annoying. Your forward deployment actually is kind of fine because you get the Spezialaufklärers, which are a really strong forward deployment infantry. Only no good support vehicle for it, like the VRDMs are not that great. But
See, I don't think they're that good. I like when I think about like good forward deployment units, I think about their AT weapon more than anything else. Like if like a lot of like let's say like the French forward deployment stuff have like Apalas, whereas this has an RPG 22 with 15 AP. So it's like the quality is very different.
not a French.
Yeah, they're going to be able to do like reasonable damage against infantry, sure, but that's not really the problem when it comes to forward deployment.
Well, as
I
most
think
other.
the biggest problem with forward deployment generally to me is like any armored vehicles.
Okay, but there's few armored. So you mean something like a?
Well, that's why like, the French are really strong, right? Because they get the MX-10s and they can forward deploy.
Yeah.
And then there's other units that can like come with transports that are armored, and they're a problem, right?
True. Yeah. So therefore, but the Spezialaufklärer still has a decent RPG, and
It's only 500-meter range, so you have that problem where
what did I do?
like machine gun tanks or machine gun vehicles are going to kill them.
Okay. Yeah, true. So you would put them into B tier then? Or A tier still?
Yeah, I think B is fine.
Okay, then let's put them into top of B tier. Though, yeah, the T-72 is scary, and the T-55s as well. But in the forward deployment, the air, for me, I think they would be A tier. But yeah, let's
You like your aircraft.
now.
I don't have as much experience planning aircraft as you do, so
No, I mean the air tap is one of the better ones. It's not. I'm not saying it's one of the one of the top features of.
No, I think the yeah, I agree. Like the SU-22s are good.
And then the 82nd Airborne, another the one that was before the 15th day, the division of everybody's hate, which got nerfed in relatively heavily though. This is a division where I'm actually pretty unsure at the moment where to put them, especially as they got one more nerf lately. And
I would be very confident playing this game in a 1v1, or this division in 1v1. I think it's actually very strong.
yeah, like I wouldn't say they're anywhere near C tier, but I'm not sure if they're B, A, or maybe even still S, because they still have a lot of good forward deployment, and Dragon 2s in forward deployment are still absolutely scary. They still have Apaches, which are the best helicopters, including rocket Apaches. But what they don't have anymore is any good artillery at all, and they're not as efficient anymore without the mech rifles and the late game infantry, because you have to pay the extra forward deployment price throughout the game, even though your units don't forward deploy anymore later on with the Airborne. So yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right on the RT front. You're right. I think the main way that this division plays right now, though, is like helicopter spam. Like it's super oppressive because of the sheer availability on a lot of like the lower end like Cobras and Little Birds. Like you get like 4 Heavy Hogs on one card, and you get like 6 Little Birds, right? And yeah, Little Birds aren't that great, but they're still a threat that you got to deal with. And if you have enough of them, then like most of the time at the moment, people are using aircraft to kill helicopters, right? And if you basically just run your enemy out of like air-to-air helicopter or air-to-air aircraft, those helicopters can become really, really oppressive.
Well, but you don't have anything to deal, like you don't have the artillery anymore to, like before I would agree with you, because you also had the M109s to deal with any ground-based AA relatively efficiently, and then send your helicopters in to either finish them off when they were stunned or just run over everything after they died.
I don't think so. The way that I'm thinking of the helicopters is not like a punch through the lines, run around the back line kind of deal. It's more they can support your infantry from a distance really well. So it like buffs your infantry gameplay massively.
Yeah, I think this division has a couple of bad matchups now, though. So I think they are still maybe A tier. I would
put them say A. Yeah, I don't think
let's put them into A tier. I agree they're still strong. The infantry, the forward deployment is still really scary. And as I said, there's one of those American divisions where you just get so many ATGMs, which making pushing into them with armored units always such a pain. Because the Dragon 2 and the TOW 2s are just pretty good ATGMs, and they one or two hit everything you got, which is just.
I'll tell you what. One thing I have noticed going through all of these decks with you so far is I've really got to edit a lot of them. They're so old. Okay. All right, should we move on?
Yeah, the 8th Infantry coming up next, and that is the division that also was played a lot back in the day. And lately, I don't see it as often, but I still think it's a solid middle of the road division. Yeah, decent helicopters. Not having Apaches obviously hurts. Decent tanks. The M1 being a nice middle of like now was the the best tank back in the day. Now one of the middle tanks, and then infantry wise, yeah, they're pretty good, but nice German American mix there. The mech rifles, they're also the ones with the law, still kick ass when it comes to dealing with other infantry. So
yeah, I'm not sure what I think about the 8th Infantry. It's a very weirdly placed deck right now because they don't really have strong cheap armored support for their infantry, which a lot of other divisions do. So they kind of like struggle in that department, I think, especially since they're reliant on the law, they're reliant on the dragon, and the best AT you're getting is like the 84. So like they really struggle into like the BMPs. They do get the decent artillery. Obviously, they got the good tanks. Like the M1A1, I think is actually in a lot of ways better than the M1A1HA because it's like a really good price point right now for 240 points. I think it's a decent price. And helicopters are obviously great. I think the Cobras are all you need, like just rocket Cobras for days. And their aircraft's good enough, but yeah, I don't know. They just seem very mediocre right now in comparison to other divisions that do a lot of stuff better.
Yeah, they don't have a forward deployment, and yes, they don't have either super cheap or super high spam. What actually at the moment is a super scary strategy, though, is the M113 armored personnel carriers. The 50 cal on them, how cheap you get it, and how strong 50 cals are at the moment, is somehow surprisingly strong. Which is why I would put them higher into B tier for that like strategy on top of a pretty mediocre division alone. Because
you are not putting them into B tier based on M113s, please. No, I don't think so.
Have you played against M113 spam lately?
Well, a BMP's just gonna ruin them, so it doesn't matter.
But you have M60s, you have
And
Dragoon
like I
2s.
understand that like 50 cals are great at killing infantry right now. They really are.
And they're
But
killing helicopters as well, because they have somehow more range against helicopters than 20 millimeters.
it's because they can see further.
That's as well. But they also have more range than 20 millimeters.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be. I think they're C tier.
You would put them in C tier, okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's at least put them above the British then.
Yeah, I think they're ahead of the British for sure. Yeah, yeah. If we're doing order as well, then yeah.
And now we come to my favorite of all time. This will also never change. Just like I'm still pleading for Kuruk in my heart in Steel Division 2, KDA, and this division now surprisingly slaps. I won a tournament before with them, and it's insane how they got the buffs, and now they are just so good with the T55s, T62s, and the Spetsnaz. Like, oh boy, this division is scary in my eyes. And because they have the best AA in that game, and the best artillery, which is just such a nice baseline. And then the infantry spam is insane. And now having solid tanks on top of that, it's just, in my eyes, the perfect division for me. So I'm heavily biased in this regard.
Yeah, I think they are okay. I like the MiG, like they get the MiG-21 HE bombers, which are like spammable. Decent enough, like helicopters, like nice AA, like the flat SFL is just such a beast.
In my eyes, this is the best AA tab in the game. They have the perfect helicopter killer, and they have the perfect plane killer with the book.
I mean, even the flat SFL is great at killing airplanes, especially seed aircraft that fire over the top. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I think their infantry is like incredibly obnoxious, and like I don't know if the Malka is really like suitable for 1v1, but it's very strong.
It actually is. Like I play a lot of 1v1s, and I won 2v2 tournament with this deck together with Damned. We won the Friday night tournament.
Just what, for 145 points or 125 points, whatever it is. Yeah, 145. Sorry, with the supply or with the transport, you get like the 4.19 damage anyway on the 152 mil guns. So yeah, I could see this being strong. I'm not sure how strong.
Yeah, that's like in my world this is S plus, obviously. But like, let's be realistically,
it's like high B, low A.
Yeah, exactly. That's also where I would have put it. I would have put it here behind 82nd, into A tier at the moment. But yeah, that's why I wanted your opinion here, because like in my opinion on this one wouldn't be super objective. On the next one, though, I think I have a relatively objective view, and I think it's pretty damn bad at the moment. Outside of having one card of AMXs, Territorial Kommando Süd, the last remaining division here.
Yeah. This division is just kind of lacking in a lot of areas. It's crappy helicopters. Does get a lot of decent, like, Jaeger forward deployment.
Yeah, but they are still only like the recon forward deployment, not the special forces forward deployment.
Yeah, true, but they're still meaty squads, right? They are.
Yeah,
like 11-man squads.
If they
the M48s are really good, I think, at the moment, and their infantry tab is just kind of rough because their best 80 infantry comes with is the Herrenberg bill, but they have to come in with the Puma, which makes them kind of weird. I can't imagine that's useful in 1v1 at all. It's gonna be really annoying to use.
Well, they are useful, but yeah, they are not a unit you want to have super many at once on.
You do get 2 cards of the Pioneers with the hand flam patron, so
yeah, that is nice. The hand flam patron is nice. Like, the infantry tab is fine. I think the M48 is a solid tank, but I don't think it's a tank you want to fully rely on. It's too light for that. And at the same time, not spammable enough. Like, it's a bit weird. It's not quite a T55 on spammability, and it's not good enough to be your top-end tank. The ATGMs in this deck are all Milans, which, as I said before, have a range issue. So, for me, this is a D-tier division at the moment.
You're putting it in the D.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
I would low C, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the AMX 10 alone makes it C tier. Like, that's the one thing that makes it C tier.
We can let the Brits die on their hill.
Yeah, the first armored.
Sad times.
The challenger needs a slight buff, and then
I'm just gonna like play exclusively Brits in the WARNO League just to make them go up in tiers. I will force it.
Yeah, the British.
Yeah.
So I think
Anything you wanna change? Anything you?
No, I think we did a good one. I would say it also showed that the balance in WARNO is okay at the moment. For an early access game, I would say it's pretty good, but obviously still a lot needs to be done to get it into a good or great state for a fully launched game.
Yeah, for team games, I think the game right now is fantastic, balance-wise. 1v1, I can see problems, particularly when it comes to like cheesy strategies in certain divisions. But yeah, overall, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see how many people will play 39th in the league. And KDA. KDA, I will want to see a lot as well, but that's my hopes there. So if any of you league players watch it, I will always be biased to your side when I cast a game of KDA on. If you want to get my bias, you know how to. And yeah, thanks for joining me, Vulcan. And yeah, this was
been good.
A lot of fun. And thanks for joining us as well, everyone out there. If you want to see more of us, consider subscribing to our channels. And consider leaving a like so more people can see this amazing tier list.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.